Thank you all very much for coming. Means a lot to us to see you again. I know you were anxious to sit in the front row of the PAC one more time in your lives. So we've been thinking a lot about kids in Clarkston and the lives we hope you lead, and we're trying to do a better job of connecting with alumni and letting you know that it's not just an education that you get here, but this is a thread for life that we want to be part of your lives. And so there are 4 things that I've been thinking about as I read and study about schools, and 4 things that I hope for you. One of them is that you can do what you want to do in your lives, so get into the schools you want to get into or the career you want to get into. Another one is that you don't have too much debt when you do so. Another one is that you feel like your dreams can come true. And another one is that you're happy and that you have a good life, the kind of life that you want to live. And I think if we do those things well, then all the things that in the education that you get will have taken care of themselves. So I've been having some different conversations with people around the county and around the country about those kinds of things, about social emotional well-being and about careers. And Brendan Greenlee's been working on the office this summer and helped put together some alumni events. And Mary Ellen Rowe is our new marketing director, and so she's been working with us. And so thank you all very much for being here. And we have some very nice people who with lots of knowledge who are generous enough to come and share some thoughts with you, and hopefully it will be meaningful. And please know that we'll be inviting you back in the future. We had about 90 people come in December, and we'll be getting back in touch with you, hopefully to have you connect with some of our upcoming seniors and maybe younger kids to share some of your knowledge with them. And this will be an ongoing conversation and relationship. And as always, we want to do whatever we can for you to help your dreams come true. So Mr. Chris Broski is one of our fantastic teachers here in Clarkston, and he's one of the reasons that this is such a great place along with all of you. And so I'm going to turn it over to him, and thank you very much for being here on your day off.
Thank you, Dr. Rock. Appreciate it. You guys, welcome. This is, like Dr. Rock said, this is our first annual alumni luncheon for the summertime. We did it back in December. It went over really well. It's a lot harder to get you guys in the summer to come because of many reasons. One, it's the summertime, and you guys like to vacation, and some of you guys are going out, still off at school or whatnot, taking summer classes. So I appreciate you guys taking your time, but I really think you guys are going to want to come back in future years, because our goal here is to connect you guys with some really great people in the job arenas, the job services areas, where you guys can see, hey, yeah, I didn't even know that job existed, or I didn't know, how to reach out and find out what was out there. So we've got 2 great people here on our panel to talk to you guys today. I'm not going to explain what they do, because they can do it themselves, and they'll do a much better job than I will. But like, if I've ever had you in class, or you guys know, for anything you guys do, make it interactive. You have questions, ask questions. You guys are going to dictate the flow of this, and a lot of this, you guys want to know, like, oh yeah, how did you do that? What should I do? So I really think you guys are going to walk away going, oh yeah, this was a really good time spent. So our first person that I'm going to introduce is Miss Jennifer Llewellyn. And our second person we're going to have is Miss Nancy Schmitz. I'm going to let them explain who they are, because they both hold pretty cool jobs. So here you go.
Good afternoon.
Good job.
Good afternoon. Thank you. So my name is Jennifer Llewellyn, and I have the distinct pleasure of being the manager of workforce development at Oakland County and the director of the Oakland County Michigan Works Agency, which you're probably wondering what's that. But my job essentially is to help students like you, adults, individuals with disabilities, veterans, people that are unemployed, and businesses make that match of workforce and talent and employment and careers. When I was a sophomore in college, my parents lost their jobs about 6 months apart from each other. And during that time, I found the whole process very fascinating of what happens to a family and what happens to a person when they're laid off and they're out of work. And if any of you or of your parents or aunts or uncles have been through that process, it's a very difficult process. And so I was fascinated by this whole concept of how do we get into careers? How do we choose what we're going to be when we grow up? And how do we find that passion? And what drives us? And how do people end up doing what they do? And so my role, I'm a certified career development facilitator, and I spent many years working with young people like you to figure out what it is that you want to be and what's next, and how do you live that life of happiness and passion and joy throughout your career. There's nothing worse than going to a job every day and being miserable. So that's my role. I'm thrilled to be here today and look forward to the conversation.
Great, thank you. Nancy, you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Nancy Schmutz, and I'm the Dean of Students and the Assistant Vice President for Student Affairs at Oakland University. I think I have the coolest job in the world.
I agree.
I get to do lots of different things, and no 2 days are the same. But if I were to describe what my role is, I think the first thing I would say is it's all about student advocacy. So if there are issues that students are facing either individually or collectively, I'm going to be involved in those conversations. I'm also going to be involved in sort of the campus climate, campus civility, the standards that the campus holds, and what kind of a community do we want to be. I'm really involved in all of that. And then I work individually with students who are in crisis, and that happens more times than we want. And so I'll work with the student. I will work sometimes with that student's family to determine how can we best get that student back on the road. Does that mean a time, taking some time away from school, or does it mean shoring up some resources to help this student re-engage and to be successful, both academically successful, but personally and emotionally successful? So those are kind of the big pieces that I do, and there are lots of pieces that feed into that. You probably read the newspapers like everybody, and one of the criticisms of higher education right now is that we're bringing a lot of students to college, but we're not graduating them at the rates that we should be. So we're doing a lot of work on retention, and we're doing a lot of work on what do we as a community need to do, or how do we need to change to see that students are successful, and that they end up walking across a stage like this, earning the certification, the degree that they came for. And I can talk lots more, but that's in a nutshell. That's what I do. I have a great job.
All right, so the cool thing about doing this is that we get people that are students that are just graduated, class of 2017, and we get students that are just going into their final year of college. So for the young students, the up-and-coming freshmen, Nancy, do you have any advice on how to navigate college life and how to make it a little bit easier for them?
Let me try to synthesize my thoughts.
Yeah.
I think to start out, I would say that the first month of school is your most critical month. It's during that month of school that you're going to make your initial contacts. You're going to start to develop a peer group. You're going to get the hang of what goes on in a college classroom and how to engage in that classroom. And so I was talking to David Schwartz, he's the director of our counseling center, yesterday, and his thing is the second, third, and fourth weeks of the semester is the most critical. Because after that, people start developing patterns. So if you go to class and you always sit in the back row in the corner and you don't talk to anybody, it gets harder and harder to talk to people as the semester goes on, because you see people are now kind of forming groups, they're forming study groups, they're forming friendships. And so starting to make those connections in the classroom, If you're living in the residence halls, on your floor. You know, it's easy just to walk to your room, go to your room, shut the door. But hang out in that floor lounge, and it's a little uncomfortable. I mean, the whole first semester of school is a little uncomfortable. You're kind of out of your element. But see what you can do to make yourself a little vulnerable, to engage with somebody who looks different than you, who is from a different area. You're from a suburban area. Connect with somebody from the city or somebody from a rural area. I mean, it's just that whole part about starting to make those connections.
Awesome. Yeah, I was going to say, kids nowadays, a lot of them don't go in blind, and so when they go in for their dorms, they know who they're staying with, and they know, so they don't have to put themselves out there as much. All right, so I was sort of explaining to Nancy how and Jennifer as well, what our school is like. You know, we have, for the most part, pretty academically driven students, you know, students that, you know, want to do well, and they did pretty well throughout CHS. Sometimes, though, you put yourself in a college atmosphere, and you're really pushing yourself, and you're in a really challenging program, and now it's not coming as easy as it was before. And I think that's where I get most worried about my former students, where I talk to them, and I can see that they're struggling, and they don't know what to do. They don't know, they've never struggled before in their lives. So where do they go? What do they do?
Oh, there's so many places, but the first part of that is you just have to reach out. Tutoring, it's free. It's available for all of the 1 and 200 level classes. It is at Oakland, I'm sure it is at Michigan and all these other schools. Tutoring at the high school level was probably something that you thought you never needed, and it was like, oh, I don't need a tutor. A lot of students at the university level will use a tutor to take that B to an A, or take that C to an A. Supplemental instruction. Many universities offer it in the classes that are historically difficult. And what that means is that you meet with a peer leader who reteaches some of the difficult concepts. We offer it in chemistry, biology, math, physics, the classes that really give people a struggle. Get involved in some study groups. Some faculty members will kind of help those study groups form in the class, but if they don't, get with 1 or 2 people and make a commitment to spending a couple hours or 2 or 3 or 4 hours a week working on some difficult kinds of things. For those of you in the residence halls, many schools have academic peer mentors. They're called different things at different schools, but they're individuals, they're upper class students who have been there, done that, can be really helpful to you. But all of these things I'm talking about is stepping out of your comfort zone. And many of you, as your teacher has said, you know, you've excelled academically, you've done well, you know, you've passed the test, you've gotten B pluses and A's, and so this is really different. One of the standards we talk about at the university level is that for every hour that you spend in class, you need to spend at least 4 hours studying outside of class. And that's different. There's so much free time at the university. A full-time student is somewhere between 12 and 16 credits, and I do want to talk about that. I'm going to talk about 16 credits. So that's only 16 hours out of 168 hours a week that you're actually in class. But when you figure that 16 times 4, then you've got another 48 hours that really need to be actively engaged with the coursework. And so all of a sudden, you're over a 40-hour week, which kind of brings me to the next part about working. How many of you worked in high school? Yep. And you probably still got really good grades. I think at the university level, you look at your schedule and you think, oh, I got all these hours. I can pick up 20 hours a week at the mall and not miss a beat. That can be really, really problematic as you get toward the middle of the semester. For those of you just starting your college career, if you don't have to work the first year, I'd say don't work. If you do have to work, see what you can do in the 10 to 12 to 15 hours a week and not an hour more. The time really needs to be spent engaged in other university activities. Your courses, of course, are your primary reason for being there, but then you also want to be a member of this community. This is your new world. This is your new Clarkston High School, whether that's Oakland or Eastern or Western or Central. So you've got to be a part of that community, and there are some different ways to become a part of that community. Registered student organizations, that's a great way. Find students who are in your major, and all of a sudden there's going to be a new community. Maybe you like to write for the newspaper, or you did some work on the radio station here. All of those kinds of things will help plant you in this community so you begin to feel a viable part of it. Not a spectator who's just watching everybody else do things, but that you're in the mix and you're both making contributions and receiving a lot from that community.
Thank you. This is a question that's going to go to both of you guys because it's perfect for both of you. It's a lot of us don't know how to make that decision. If you haven't made a decision on what you want to do, what area you want to go to, what degree you want to pursue, what career you want to go after, how do you approach that? I mean, that's the biggest decision that probably you're going to make at this point in your lives. Can you guys give us some tips, or how do I approach that situation?
Sure, I'll start. I was that student. I was that graduate that wasn't really sure. I was headed to Oakland University the fall after I graduated, but actually went in as an undecided major because I really just had no clue. And spent some time talking to different people. And ultimately what shaped my decision was I was at work when I worked at Kmart. I was a layaway worker at Kmart. And the human resources manager in the back needed some help with processing some payroll and doing some scheduling. We were really slow in layaway, so she said, well, you come back and help me. And so while I was back there, I started asking questions. So, what do you do, and how does this work, and what is a typical day like? And she was the one that had interviewed me and hired me and arranged for my training, and all of a sudden things just started really clicking for me that this was really fascinating and I wanted to know more. And I really just tried to immerse myself into opportunities that were in that field. So a couple things as far as strategies. Number one, I brought today a lot of information for you that we'll distribute. And a lot of it is just basic labor market information and data about what type of jobs are in demand. There is a document on the top in-demand jobs right here in Oakland County. And so it breaks down, information technology and engineering and skilled trades, business and finance, and also connected mobility, which is this whole autonomous vehicle space. I also brought some information on the top 50 high demand occupations in Michigan, so you can see the type of number of job openings, what type of education is required, how much you can earn. My favorite right now is our brand new apprenticeship guide. So for those of you or friends of yours that are saying, you know what, a four-year college isn't for me, that's not what I'm planning to do. I'd like to do an apprenticeship, I'd like to be an electrician, I'd like to be a plumber, I'd like to be a welder, and as we were saying, all those folks make way more money than we do up here. Those skilled trades occupations. And then we also have some data, some surveys that we did with businesses on top jobs in healthcare in the area and top jobs in connected mobility. So one thing you really need to do is just really arm yourself with data. What type of jobs are going to be in demand? I had a woman that came to me when I was a career advisor many years ago. She wanted to be an equestrian massage therapist. That was her career goal. And I said, well, that's fantastic, but how many horse massage therapist jobs are available around here? Let's start doing some research. And we couldn't find a single one. Now, if you go to Kentucky, there were many of those occupations, but she didn't want to move to Kentucky. So I said, well, let's look at data. Would you massage a human? maybe, instead of a horse. Let's look at the demand in that occupation. What is it that appeals about this to you? Are you interested in being a veterinarian technician, or would you be interested in being a massage therapist or maybe a physical therapy assistant? So that data is really critical. The second piece is talk to people that are in the fields that you are considering. If you want to be a teacher, talk to the teachers. Learn about what are the challenges, what are the things that they love. Go volunteer in a classroom, job shadow. If you want to be an electrician, see if you can go and join them for the day. If you want to be a nurse, take a tour of your local hospital. It's just as important for you to know what you don't want to do that it is to know what you do want to do. So if you go and tour with the nurse, you're like, blood, oh God, I'm gonna pass out. Maybe that's not for you, right? And that's okay, because then it eliminates that as an option. And the third piece is you have to find that balance between following your passion, what I call it's the fire in your belly. So what's your fire in your belly? Is there anybody in here that has fire in your belly? I see you have a natural resources shirt on. What's your fire in your belly? Mm-hmm. Nice. Anybody else? Something else that really, what was it, German and international studies? Is that your fire in your belly? Right. So we all have that thing, most of you have that thing where people say, gosh, you're really good at talking to other people. Gosh, you're really good at fixing things. You're really good at music. So we all have that little passion. But you have to watch, because sometimes you might have fire in your belly and passion for astronomy, but then what are you going to do with that? You might have fire and passion for playing the piano, but is that something that you can make a career out of? So my recommendations for strategy are engagement and knowledge and data, and also finding that passion, but making sure you can actually support yourself on it and not live in your parents' basement forever.
That's a great point, and it really transcends into what I had to go through as well, because I wasn't sure. I'm like, I love education, I love students, and I love those relationships, but I didn't know. I knew I was really good at money as well, and I love the stock market, so I sort of did both, and I got my education degree, and I also started my own investment company, and I was a financial advisor for 10 years. And although I made pretty good money, I didn't like it at all. I woke up every day going, oh God, I hate this. And I looked at all my friends, and every day they went to jobs they hated. And I said, this is not for me. I've got to make better decision for myself. I want to wake up excited and happy. And so I sold my company and went hardcore at teaching, and I love it to this day. I don't look back at all. I'm super happy. You guys, if you have had me in class, you know me, and if you've seen me around, you know me. I'm happy. You rarely see me upset or angry or it's just, this is what I love to do, and you guys have to have that. If you go to a job you hate, plenty of my friends, they do this every day, and they go to the boss they hate every day, in the cubicle or their office every day they hate, and they drive every day to that stupid job. So you've got to love it. You've got to love it. And if you don't love it, make changes.
Chris, do you love your boss?
Yes. There was no pause. I was just thinking. All right.
I think you brought up a good point too, that just because you're choosing this, you don't have to stay in that space. You have a whole lifetime to make those changes and transform yourself. And that's actually what we encourage people to do. This whole connected mobility study I was telling you about, what we found was that the number one occupation that's in demand right now in connected mobility actually doesn't even exist. It's a hybrid of an electrical engineer and a software engineer and a systems engineer with a little bit of connected mobility. That job didn't even exist at all 5 years ago. And so now we're working actually with Oakland University and other community colleges and Baker College to create curriculum and redesign their education programs so that people can work as connected mobility engineers. If there's someone out there that became an engineer let's say 25 or 30 years ago, they're not going to have these skills, they're not going to have that knowledge. So how do I change from, being maybe just a basic automotive engineer to work in this connected mobility space? So, it's a challenging, the whole world of careers is challenging. You have to make sure that you're always keeping that education, keeping options open, and educating yourself about what is ahead in your field.
You want to add to that, Nancy, at all?
No,
No.
I agree with everything they
Okay.
said.
All right.
Just one comment about money. I mean, we all need to pay our rent, we all need to pay our mortgage, we all need a car to drive to get to work. So money's important, but I think it's important to think about how much we need versus what we perceive that we want. And if you are happy in your work, the money doesn't become such an issue. Money becomes a distraction for people when they're unhappy in other parts of their life. And I'm sure you can all think about people you know in your life that have a ton of money and they're always buying the newest, the best, the biggest, but they're always running. They're always running, and they can't quite, when I do this, I'll be happy. When I get this, it'll be great. But they never get there. And so it's that finding that satisfaction in yourself and in a role that you are going to play in this world that we live in.
Which question for all of you guys. Who here knows for sure they know what they want to do? All right, a few of you guys, and a couple people are like this, so I don't really trust you. That's tough, and that's kind of why we're here, I think. And so we talked about apprenticeships, and I think we sort of skimmed it a little bit. So can you go? Apprenticeship sounds, kind of old-fashioned, but it's not at all. So can you talk a little bit, because some people are like, you know what, I tried out, a year of college, or maybe I don't even want to go to college at all. I love this. How do I do this?
Right. So the very, very best thing about apprenticeships is that when you finish, you generally have a journeyman's card, some type of, usually an associate's degree, and you're debt-free. You're debt-free. So imagine going to school and being debt-free, coming out on the back end. And, the basic fundamental design of an apprenticeship is it's a partnership between you and an employer and a training organization. Now, the training organization could be a community college, it could be a union hall, it could be some type of credentialed educational facility. But you are selected by the employer or by the labor organization to be an apprentice. And so it's a balance of work and school. So you may work 20 hours a week in the apprenticeship and be paid an apprentice rate, and then have 20 hours of schooling, which the company is also paying for. And it does have this kind of black cloud over it where people think, gosh, skilled trades or apprenticeships are a less than. And I keep saying it's an or. It's an or. I can go to the university, or I can go to the community college, or I can do an apprenticeship, or I can join the military, or I can enter the workforce. It's not a less than any of those. The apprenticeship guide lists actually 60 different occupations that there are apprenticeships available in this region. A great example is, I know a young lady who started out at the university and was just really overwhelmed, knew it just wasn't for her, and applied for our mechatronics technician program that we have. And mechatronics is a combination between like mechanical and electrical technicians or engineering. And she got picked up by a company in Auburn Hills, Brosia, and she participated in the training program at Oakland Community College for 2 years. German company, you might want to check them out. Oh, you do? Very cool, yay. Yeah, they're a great company, very dedicated in workforce and talent. But she did this whole, like, go to school, work there, go to school, work there. They paid for her education, they paid for her training. She would get a stipend when she was in school. When she was finished, so probably 23 years old when she finished, and the day after she graduated, she ended up with an associate's degree. She had her journeyman certification and then her German qualification for apprenticeship. Next day she started $25 an hour, 23 years old. We have college, 4-year graduates, some master's degree folks that aren't earning that. And so I'm a real personal advocate for apprenticeships, that it's a great choice. It's a great and I would encourage you to check out our apprenticeship guide and share it with your friends too.
All right. Sticking with Jennifer on a question that I don't think we've fully talked about, but what are the top jobs right now? Like Oakland County and Michigan. I know you have the pamphlet, but
I do.
run
Right
down
now, the number one job, which actually kind of keeps me up at night, is software developers. So last year any IT majors in here? Okay, good too. Woohoo, we're getting there. So last year we had 8,184 job openings just in Oakland County for software developers. It's unbelievable. We have 2,000 IT companies here in Oakland County, and they're calling our offices every day saying, I need more software developers. What are you going to do about that? And short of a magic wand and giving birth to 8,000 of them, I really haven't come up with another solution. But really, top software developers, registered nurses continues to be high demand. Truck drivers, believe it or not. You have to think with all of the Amazon deliveries that we're all getting every day, that the demand for truck drivers, mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, maintenance and repair, sales managers, bookkeeping. This is a great resource for you to see what the top demand jobs are. The 3 major areas that we focus on are information technology, healthcare, and advanced manufacturing. So those are kind of the 3 hub areas. All of the occupations, generally speaking, in those 3 areas, not horse massage therapists, are generally in pretty high demand.
Thank you. All right, Nancy, we got these guys are all college people here, and people can make decisions while they're at college that aren't the best decisions really to their careers in the future. Can you talk about how to keep themselves making good decisions both physically and mentally so they don't ruin things down the line?
Yeah. It's so important to think about, and we've had this discussion at the university regarding students who are in careers that might need licensure, healthcare, nurses, PT, people who want to go to law school, people who might want to, work for the FBI or the CIA. Those are all professions that require a really clean background check. And some of the choices we make can blemish that. So I think it's important to recognize that the actions I take today as an 18, 19, or 20-year-old can have a great impact when I'm 26 to 30 trying to launch this career. So let me just backtrack a little bit. I think some of the distractions in our life can be things like drugs and alcohol. It's part of our society. I think you need to give it some serious thought. Things like MIPs can be a big showstopper for a student. It can cost you $6,000 to take care of it, but even more than that, it's the distraction that it's taken from the coursework that you're doing and from the life that you're living. Not even to mention the health risks and the safety risks that these things can involve. Another thing is, I'm kind of all over the map here, but I want to talk a little bit about social media and our reactions to social media and what we put out on social media in terms of too much information. it's amazing to me how something can happen, and before we as an institution can have a press release done, you know, you can get an email from somebody across the ocean and they've already read about the incident. We're living in this world where everything is real time, and people aren't necessarily thinking about the kinds of personal information they're putting out there, and you can become very vulnerable with that too. The other thing about social media is, to me, social media is every day is 75 and sunny. You never see anybody put anything on social media that suggests that they might be feeling inferior or down, or that things aren't going well, or that they're having a hard time making life choices. You're seeing fabulous vacations, you're seeing new cars, you're seeing things that would suggest that these are great relationships that are out there. So people then start to measure themselves by what they're perceiving on other people's social media sites, and it's not always healthy. It's not healthy at all. And I just really encourage you to give some thought to A, what you put out about yourself, but B, what kinds of conclusions that you draw about what other people have put out there. Being a university or a college student can be really stressful. And when I looked at some statistics from our last college health survey that we did, stress and anxiety were in the 33 to 38% of our students had felt excessive stress or anxiety that had significantly impacted their college work in the prior year. That's huge. So being able to recognize that about yourself is one thing, and then being able to say, how can I address this? How can I deal with this? You know, I don't think my parents understand. So again, I'm going to go back to that, making yourself open or vulnerable to accepting some help from folks. All college campuses have counseling centers. It's all confidential. It's all HIPAA and FERPA protected. Nobody's going to tell anybody that you're even going there if you don't want to. They can give you some really good insight into what you're experiencing, the point in life where you're at, and how you can go about making some good choices. It's somebody who is not a friend, it's not a family member, but you can have an honest discussion with, and all those values that people put on us are not part of that discussion. It can be a really transformational kind of thing for any of us. And yeah, it's kind of scary, and it's kind of scary to walk through the door and say, I'm going to talk to a therapist, a counselor. You know, this is like, oh, you know, this isn't part of me. But trust me, for those folks that have, any of us that have done that, it can really be life-changing. And I encourage you to make yourself open to those things. One of the things I think that's most important are to have paraprofessionals living in the halls, like in large quantities, to have upper-class students who have been successful at the university, living among students, providing other opportunities for students, making students aware of positive options that they have. The challenges around drugs and alcohol, I believe, have to do with excessive time that people have on their hands. I think if there are other options available, there's not anything really magical about drinking. I mean, you know, it's just not very magical. But people do it out of boredom. People do it out of that need to fit in, to connect. And I think one of the things that's important to think about is, how else can I connect in this world? What are some other things that I can do? You know, there are a lot of positive things going out there. You know, you talked about sustainability. That is so cool. And there are so many initiatives in our communities, you know, this whole green concept. And, you know, we've got to be stewards of this earth. And, you know, that's just one example about, we've got to change some negative stuff that's going on in our world. So I guess making connections, getting more people, peers. I think what we're finding with the generation of students that are students right now is that you are impacted as much by peers as by any old people like us up here talking. So I think that would be my answer.
I'm going to sort of piggyback on that as well. When you're at college, finding like-minded people, and that's hard sometimes, but Nancy mentioned earlier, going to clubs. Like at Michigan State's a huge campus, 30 to 40,000 people. I joined the outdoors club at Michigan State my freshman year, and we were backpacking, whitewater rafting, skydiving, canoeing, whatever. It didn't matter, just going out for a hike. And I ended up taking over that club my sophomore year and junior and senior year as well. And, I had 250 people at every meeting showing up, wanting to know what the next trip was. But you know what? It kept my mind right, and it kept me going in the right direction. I had school, I had this, and that was awesome. It was perfect. So finding those things for yourself is a big deal. I'm going to also talking about the whole decisions you can make that affect yourself later is, I guess this is probably good for me to talk about because it's finance, but you guys really got to watch what you do. Like I know, like my roommates in college, they didn't come from a lot of money, but it was so funny when they get their financial aid checks. It was like, holy moly, they just got gifted thousands of dollars, and they were so dumb. Even though they're like great now and they're like smart about it now, they were so dumb back then, and they put themselves in huge holes because financial aid checks came and they'd spend it on like new TVs. Hey, there's a new TV in the living room, and there's a huge aquarium over here. And I'm like, what in the heck? You guys work at Olive Garden, you don't make any money. So be smart with your money, all right? Be smart with your money. You're going to walk around campus and there's going to be, Visa, MasterCard, American Express, and they're just going to offer you a t-shirt to sign up for their stupid credit card. And you're going to be like, yeah, I want a free t-shirt just to give you all my personal information? Sure. It's so dumb. Don't build yourself debt.
Yeah, I was going to say the same exact thing. When it comes time to obtain employment, you'll notice three things. They're going to check your social media, whether they should or not, they're going to. They're going to do a drug test. They'll do a background check. And in some occupations, mostly like finance, banking, those insurance, they can run a credit check. And it takes 7 years for the defaults and late payments and maxed out credit cards, 7 years for those to fall off. And I can tell you, I was one of those, oh look, MasterCard, I haven't had a credit card before, I'll just fill this out. First credit card, I think I maxed it out in like 3 weeks. I mean, it was ridiculous because I was only like a $2,000 limit, but still. I can spend $2,000 in 3 weeks. I can spend it in a day. 3 weeks is pretty good. But then, so right out of the gate, I'm a freshman. I told you I was working at Kmart, so I think I was making like $7 an hour. And now I have already $2,000 in debt right out of the gate. Right out of the gate. So I'm making minimum payments. Well, what's happening? That credit score is going lower and lower and lower and lower and lower. And so I think that was a really valid point about, I have a 9-year-old and a 13-year-old at home, and whenever they go somewhere, we have 2 rules. Have fun, make good choices. That's as simple as it is. Have fun, make good choices. And that's the same words of wisdom I'm going to give to you now. You're not 9 and 13, but have fun and make good choices.
They can act like.
Oh, thanks for circling back. I wanted to talk about that because you're absolutely right. The federal government says full-time is 12 credits. However, if there is a desire to complete your program in close to 4 years, some programs are 5 years, but to complete your program, you're not going to do it taking 12 credits at a time. The other part is, to me, there's a psychological piece in all of this. So if you take at Oakland, for instance, 12 and 12, fall semester and winter semester, you're going to finish that first year with 24 credits. You're not even a sophomore. It takes 28 credits to be a sophomore. So the research that we've done at Oakland shows that now we've really had a push in the last few years for students to take 16 credits. So if you take 16 and 16, all of a sudden you've got 32 credits. So when you return for the fall of your sophomore year, you're already beginning your 5th credit into your sophomore year. And it makes a big difference, I think, emotionally, or how you picture it. But then there's also the part about time to degree. And because college is so very expensive, I mean, the tuition's expensive, but it's expensive just to live. Whether you're living in an apartment or you're living in the residence halls, or even if you're living with mom and dad, you're still in this transitory time. And the longer you elongate that period of time, the more time to degree this is going to take. So I'm all for the theory of take 16 credits if you can possibly do it. Plow through. A lot of people are starting to utilize summer semester, simply in that whole concept of time to degree. Now that's not for everybody, and some of you have had good opportunities for some summer employment to help you fund the next year, and that's very important also. But dragging it out really doesn't get you anything. Was that, yeah.
Other questions, guys? Come on, I know I saw another hand. It couldn't have been the same question. Mr. Call, question.
And I guess for the workplace and for higher education, what skills would you guys like to see our top-of-the-line students have when they exit? Kids who maybe don't exit with a lot of self-confidence, that I can walk into a room and join a club on my first day of school, knowing how valuable and important that is.
I'll tackle this. One thing that we hear consistently from businesses throughout Oakland County, and we work with all types of businesses. You know, I work with Fiat Chrysler and Magna International and Brosia, down to, you know, the local dry cleaner that needs someone to work there. One thing that we hear consistently is that the soft skills, the interpersonal skills are 10 times more important than your grade point average. You can be a 4.0 student, but if you're a jerk, you're not going to get the job and you're not going to stay. Back in 2009, I showed you the surveys on health systems and connected mobility. Back in 2009 was the first time we had done a survey of businesses to ask them, what are your #1 in-demand jobs and what skills do you need? So we're expecting the survey results to come back and say, we need engineers and we want them to have a bachelor's in mechanical engineering. The first thing that came out of that study was we need oral and written communication skills. We need problem solving skills. We need people that will show up on time. We need people that are loyal. We need people that are thinkers. We need people that are team builders, that can work independently and in groups. And it was fascinating because it really wasn't even the question that we were asking, but it was the answer that we got. And so if you look in the 2 studies that I showed you on health systems and connected mobility, on the right side of each page, it actually has what skills those employers are seeking in addition to the technical skills. And I can tell you, I've been in this role for the last 15 months, but in my previous role, I was there for 18 years and hired, probably 40 to 50 interns during that time there, and probably 100 staff members. And most of the time, the candidates that we hired, I hired them because they were likable, they fit in, they were smart, they were fit into the culture of our organization, they were willing to jump in, they were motivated. Most people don't have workforce development experience or administering job training programs or federal regulations. I can teach you all of that. I can teach you that, but I can't teach you those other fundamental basic skills that you need. And those are just so critically important. So going back to being involved in activities and being well-rounded, those are the skills that you're going to get from participating in those. And I was one of those students. I was very involved in the high school. I was drum major of the marching band, which I'm still so crazy proud of. But I was drum major of the marching band and involved in student council and National Honor Society and all those different events. And when I got to Oakland University and I was a commuter student, I was at a complete loss. I was in no clubs and no activities, and I actually did an interview just last week with an OU student where they're coming back and asking alumni for feedback, and I said that that was one of my biggest regrets, was that I didn't become more engaged on campus. So I would encourage you, you know, whether you're at the community college or a university or you're doing an apprenticeship, there are a lot of opportunities for you to volunteer in your community. It doesn't have to be something that's connected to school. I know we're talking a lot about college and university here, but if you're doing an apprenticeship to be an electrician, you know, volunteer for Habitat for Humanity. If you want to go in the military, you know, see if you can volunteer to go talk to other high school students about military options. There are so many great opportunities for you to get those soft and personal skills, which are really going to make you employable at the end of the day.
And I think you made a really good point, Mr. Call, is that you can have it all through high school. You can also just drop it and not be good at it anymore. Or if it was given to you the whole time, you never really got that skill of putting yourself out there, getting a little uncomfortable, and making, you know, the most of the situation, which I think is a big part of, you know, just daily life and being successful, is putting yourself out there. Get uncomfortable.
And it has a snowball effect too. It's taking that one step and making the one connection, and pretty soon all of those relationships, it's like dominoes, they begin to fall. But you have to make that one uncomfortable step, or that one step that feels unsure, and then it's amazing how this snowball will help you make those connections. And I see some of you folks who graduated a few years ago shaking your head that it's
And 100%. And some of you guys came today. That's a step. It's uncomfortable for a lot of people to, hey, I'm going to come back to this. I don't really even know anybody. I'm telling you, those situations are big. So, any other questions? Yeah, we're running out of time, guys. We don't want to keep you guys long whatsoever. I wanted to thank our panelists.
So I just want to thank all of you for coming and let you know that we care a lot about you and we're interested in you. We want to see you have good lives. I listened to a piece on some research last night, and it was talking about a lot of the stress and anxiety that people feel throughout their lives and the trauma that they experience early in life, and how the trauma you experience has long-term effects. So if you were abused as a child, or your parents were divorced, or a lot of different things like that, you end up with risk factors later in life where you're less healthy, you might have heart disease, cancer, more prone to those kinds of things. And so we're talking about ways that we can prevent that. And the doctor who did this big study, he said, we need really good parents who really connect with kids and love their children. So of all the things you're going to do in your lives, and I haven't always been very, very good at this, and I'm still not, you're going to be a mom or a dad, maybe. And so if you do a good job of that, then our world gets to be a better place. So thank you for being here, and thank you for being good people, and thank you for all that you do, and my very best wishes. Hope to see you again very soon. Thank you. Thank you to Mr. Broski, too. Appreciate it. Thank you.
And good luck next year, guys. Have fun. Make good choices.